A special shout out to the big patrons of the month, including the Nerd Therapist and Dan the MiniGolf Wizard. Thanks, heroes. Hey, Pokemon Masters, Berkey Patobi here, and you may have noticed I don't do Pokemon theories anywhere nearly as much as I used to. I used to do them all of the time. They were the original foundation, the first big stepping stone on the channel. I was known as a Pokemon theorist through and through. Now I'm just more of a general Pokemon fan who does a lot of Pokemon theories and does a lot of speculation, and I kind of do those Pokemon epics from time to time, and yes, I'm still planning on doing more of those. And you know, I also of course do things like my evolution series, which is kind of a big Pokemon theory, but generally speaking, Pokemon theories, at the time, I had 6 generations of Pokemon untouched where I had noticed things that other people hadn't to use from. Then I did all of those theories and, well, I didn't get a new generation as fast as I could come up with the theories. And what's even sadder is sometimes I would make a theory and then when new evidence would come up, I'd feel like kind of a bit of a plum where something would happen and I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm probably quite definitively wrong here. So at least some of my Pokemon theories are wrong, and actually Pokemon theories in general. I've been over on True Green 7's channel debunking general Pokemon theories that we know to be wrong now, and of course you can check out that video linked at the top of the description. But today Ron is over here helping me out debunking some of my own personal homemade Pokemon theories. Ron, please buddy, don't go too harsh on me.
I mean, if you deserve what's coming to you, I make no promises. But we did look at all your Pokemon theories, most of which seem to be correct. However, there were a few that are either totally wrong or require a new perspective. So we do encourage you guys in the comments to constantly hunt for more Pokemon theory evidence. It'll help Toby quite a bit.
Okay, in that case, let me start at the beginning with my baby, my gem, my diamond in the rough. Literally. My theory about the Crystal Onyx. Crystal Onyx, right? You all remember the Crystal Onyx from the anime, a crystallized structure that forms an Onyx that is different to regular Onyx? Of course you do, it's a massive mystery, and one of my first videos was a very successful Pokemon theory about this Pokemon that I now believe might be slightly wrong. All of this stems from Pokedex entries of Onyx and Steelix that talk about how it forms underground under intense heat and pressure.
Under pressure.
Thanks, True Green. In particular, Steelix's Pokedex entry talks about how it can be harder than Diamond. So, harder than Diamond? Nothing can be harder than Diamond, apart from Diamond. Oh wait, what if Onyx and Steelix are made of Diamond and that's what the Crystal Onyx is? Onyx only evolves via the metal coat, so it's a steel coating over Steelix and the rest of its interior all Diamond. All Onyx look that way at birth, but they tunnel underground, they ingest minerals and become the regular Onyx that we know. And we can even see this when Steelix Mega evolves and you can see the crystal structure jettisoning out. So, go on, True Green, how might this one be wrong?
Okay, here we go. First, we kinda know that Onyx hatch out of the egg with rock skin right from the start, as we see in every game since Gen 2, and in fact it seems like the reality of this Pokemon is the opposite of what your theory proposes. Steelix's Pokedex entry states how it is said that if Onyx lives for over 100 years, its composition changes to become diamond-like as it evolves into Steelix. So in general, just like real diamonds, Onyx is some kind of stone that can, in rare circumstances, be pressurized and become a diamond. It seems like you may have misinterpreted this fact. When you saw Mega Steelix, you thought that was a callback, showing the Crystal Onyx that was underneath all along. But in fact, it makes more sense that the pressure of Mega evolving pressurizes the stone within Steelix, further creating a diamond structure which pops out of Steelix's shell. So the theory's a bit different now.
Speaking of giant crystals, here is another one that I was really proud of that just never came to fruition. See, in the Kalos region, in Anastar City, there is a giant sundial that has connections to Mega Evolution. This sundial is made of a giant pink crystal and has a gold ring in the middle. It is sat just on the edge of the Great Bay of the Kalos region. Only when you look at the Kalos region map, there is no Great Bay. There shouldn't be a giant body of water there, nothing more than a little lake. There certainly shouldn't be islands in the distance. When you talk about the town a little bit more, you find out that there is also something known as a moon dial that exists, and given that the next games coming out were Sun and Moon, and we had a sundial and a moon dial, I began to think about connections. Perhaps the pink crystal was made of Diance's crystal, or the gold ring one of Hooper's, that was allowing you to see through a wormhole, and on the other side of it, those islands were the Alola region. A perfect theory, I thought. Until now.
Well, obviously that hasn't come to fruition. We never got the moon dial, and in fact, Kalos doesn't seem to be particularly related to Alola, apart from some NPC texts here and there. But that's not really proof. However, here's the real deal. The hole on the sundial was made for light to shine through it. Plus, we see Hoopa rings in Oras, and they simply don't look the same. And according to your theory, the islands we see around Anastar are visible as a result of Hoopa's supposed rings, as if we're looking through the ring and seeing another place in the world. But you see the islands around Anastar even when you're not looking through the hole. The islands not matching up with anything on the Kalos map is probably just an inconsistency in the region's design.
While we don't have a better answer to this now as to why those islands are there in terms of game design, if maybe you have a theory, just let me know. I definitely think there is some kind of connection between Kalos and Alola, given Olympia and Ace Roller. This was something I speculated about before Sun and Moon came out, and again, nothing ever really materialized from it. I have a theory about it, which may be correct, but it isn't definitely wrong, like our next one. And this was when Sun and Moon came out, it provided us with a mystery character, Ryuki, who came from another region. And I believed Ryuki to be an older version of Benga from Pokemon Black and White 2. For one, they're both dragon enthusiasts, they have wild hair, they both have razor sharp teeth, and look at what Ryuki's wearing. He's dressed up in something that you might see in like the Pokestar Studios, which is right next to where Benga lives. On top of that, Benga is a word that means a style of music, in particular I think in Africa, an African style of music, and Ryuki is a musician.
Sorry man, this just seems like circumstantial evidence. One simple counterpoint could be the fact that since Sun and Moon take place shortly after the events of Black and White 2, there may not have been enough time for Benga to change that much in proportion and personality. Just because Benga is named after a music style doesn't mean that they're the same person. In Japan, he's named after the guava fruit, and his English name most probably came from a type of tree. And are you really using pointy teeth as evidence? Come on, Toby. Buddy, you're better than that. Plus, on top of those things, Ryuki has a role as a leader in Mali's Cantonian gym. He has connections to Alola and Kanto, but none of his backstory mentions his supposed Unovan roots? That seems unlikely, bro.
Okay, so the next theory I'm going to bring up is one that came out right back towards the start of the channel. It was a collaboration I did with M&J TV and Xzelion. And we put a lot of work into this theory. We really loved it. See, we had just started learning about the Pokemon multiverse as a result of the Delta episode, and Hoopa's portals were everywhere, and so we were thinking, multiple universes, Hoopa, it can create wormholes, so that's kind of cool. And Hoopa has this whole Pokedex entry talking about how it's stolen a castle from another dimension, or stolen the riches from castles from other dimensions, or other places rather. I jumped the gun a bit, and given that we didn't have Ultra Beasts and we didn't have other dimensions properly, my thought was that Hoopa had grabbed a Parfum Palace, that is a castle in Kalos, from our world, the human world. This is because the castle looks exactly like the Palace of Versailles in the real world, and inside there is this picture that is supposed to be AZ but just looks like an accurate depiction of Louis XIV from the real world. I was like, oh, Hoopa has travelled to our world, stolen the Palace of Versailles, put it in Kalos, and it's called Parfum Palace. Again, we didn't have any other interdimensional Pokemon back then, apart from, say, Giratina, but that's not really its MO.
While I would have believed you at one point, there's literally no evidence in the game that Hoopa's rings have trans-dimensional powers. Basically, all it does is warp space within our own universe. It's a wormhole, just a shortcut within our dimension by making a hole through space. Plus, Gen 7 introduced Pokemon who do travel through dimensions and universes, since that's a super big deal and part of the plot. Why would a Pokemon from a previous generation be able to do what the Ultra Beasts, Lunala and Solgaleo, were designed to do? Hoopa's rings create wormholes, not ultra wormholes, which allow you to travel to different dimensions as well as space.
Yeah, given that we didn't have any other portal creating interdimensional Pokemon like the Ultra Beasts at that time, I just kind of jumped the gun and assumed that was one of Hoopa's powers. Speaking of the Pokemon world, I'm going to move on to Theory 5, and this is the last one, and it's a big one. It's one that I know a lot of you love, and honestly, it's one that I love and would love to continue working on, even though I know it might well be wrong. That is the placement of all of the regions in the Pokemon world. To create this map, I had to go into all of the Pokemon side games, the main game, stitch together little bits of information, stitching together everything and creating a Pokemon world map, kind of inspired by the Poke-Earth from Cerebi, just using the in-lore information. However, in order to do this, I had to disregard bits of information, including any bits of info that talked about our world, the human world. This is because I believed that Pokemon was moving away from that, and yes, okay, it's mentioned China in the past and America in the past, but those were just like old school mistakes, and they weren't going to do that anymore. They weren't going to keep on referencing that stuff. Pokemon was going out of its way to solidly create its own identity and its own Pokemon planet.
But Toby, that's not entirely correct. As the series has continued even into Gen 7, the real world keeps on getting mentioned. For example, Raichu's Pokedex entry in Sun states that it has enough electricity to knock out an Indian elephant, so real world locations and even animals are being mentioned. I mean, every continent other than Africa, I believe, has been directly mentioned by Pokemon Pokemon. In Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, Professor Oak tells the player that Pokemon from around the country can be brought to the Pal Park, and then continues to say, in other words, Kanto or Hoenn. So Kanto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, and Johto must be part of the same country, like the Pokemon World's version of Japan, which explains the term National Dex. It seems to us now that the most likely thing is that the Pokemon World is an alternate version of our own, with many of the same locations just adjusted in shape and size. So it's not an exact one-for-one, for those of you thinking that Galar is just an upside-down England. However, it probably sits in the same place as England on the Pokemon World map. And as for your point about Kalos, it seems like the region is only based on the top half of France, so perhaps since France has been mentioned within the franchise, Kalos is just a region within the north of the Pokemon World's version of France. But while that's also speculative, it's still way more probable than your previous theory.
Now, don't get me wrong, when it comes to Pokemon theories, it's sad to kind of think, oh no, those ones I definitely got wrong. But actually, as I was saying, I was going through with True Green and I was surprised. I expected it to be a lot easier to find 5 Pokemon theories that we were definitely 100% wrong on, and actually there is of course a whole playlist. If you're interested in Pokemon theories, I do have more coming out. I think I'm going to make one of the next 2 videos of Pokemon theory actually, that combines the worlds of Detective Pikachu with the games. The whole thing to do with Shadow Pokemon, don't worry about it. That said, right now, if you want to watch us debunk other Pokemon theories, we've done a whole video over on True Green's channel, so please click that link at the top of the description, and as always, soar high, Pokemon Masters.
This is Ash Ketchum. You just watched a video by Birdkeeper Toby. That makes you a Pokemon Master!